everybody? Real with Omar, season 3. I am on with a very special guest today, Pabel, founder and CEO of Plurawl. We're going to get into what that is. But before you say anything, Pabel, I just want to say that you're the first guest I've had on the show that I saw on Instagram through a story who had me laughing out loud. That was like, yo, I got to rock with this dude. I like this guy's energy. So that's exactly why I sought you out, to be honest with you. Usually, I mean, if you look at my other stuff, most of my relationships in the real verse, not the metaverse, come on to here. But now you're strictly meta to meta, if we're using the right terms, because you know more than I do. So, thank you. You like the intro?
Yo, thank you, man. Shout out to the algorithm for introducing us.
Shout out for the algorithm. And let me just say which exactly clip was the one that had me laughing out loud. You had posted a video of I think it was the CEOs with Fashion Sense or something like that. That was your series, and you had posted
Swag and Substance.
Swag and Substance with John Henry, because I had met John Henry not too long ago, so it kind of resonated. And yeah, I was dying, bro. I was dying. It was a great series. I hope you got a lot of traction out of it. But I wanna unpack a little bit. Plurawl. Tell me exactly what that is, so that people that don't know you through me will get to know you.
Yeah, I mean, it was really birthed through my experience. I mean, I've been in tech and advertising marketing for like 10 plus years, ever since I graduated college. And, you know, there's some pretty well-known companies. You know, previously I was at Facebook, now I'm at TikTok. And the jobs, you know, they're relatively difficult. But the most challenging thing that I've always had to experience was this like conflict between authenticity and professionalism, right? So Plurawl, the brand, was really inspired to create the representation that I wish I had when I was younger, really to redefine professionalism. Because if you look at the word, it's really defined as a skill or competence needed to do a job. But I feel like we, as people of color, as Latinos, as Black people, like we've been trained to believe that who we are unprofessional. And I just think it's bullshit. So I'm trying to redefine what it looks like through that representation.
Well, I believe you're onto something, and I believe that what people, they've always asked us to do is conform to the norm, right? And the norm becomes the question. Who dictates the norm, right? And who dictates the culture of the company? That becomes the thing. So you've worked for some pretty big names. Can you? I mean, and without getting you in trouble for any type of non-disclosure shit.
I don't care.
Okay. Let's use Facebook for example, or the metaverse, whatever it's called now. Was there a culture coach? Like, is there somebody telling you how you should act, or was it just some things that were implied? Like, for example, and I'm going to use me as an example, and then I want you to contra. I came up going through corporate America. I own my 3 platforms, which are a commercial lender, private money lender, and a real estate broker. I've been self-employed since I was 25. Maybe I worked for 1 or 2 companies for months, but my whole life I've been an entrepreneur before people started thinking it was a cool word, right? I used to hustle, such as the word hustler. That's all I know how to do. But when I first got into the real estate game in the 2005, 2006, Figueroa, which is my last name, and this is a real conversation, and I just want to give you a good narrative of it. I was prospecting buildings for a rich white guy. Let's just say that, right? Friend of mine, he was like, look, you find the buildings, we buy them at a certain price, I'll pay you a certain premium, and I didn't realize what he was doing until later. I want to penetrate the South Bronx market, but he couldn't penetrate himself because he wasn't the right complexion, right? So we go over there, and I would call these numbers, says call here, you know, if you want to buy this house for sale by owner. And I remember calling one guy, and him saying, Figueroa, he was like, you don't have any money. And this is a real conversation. And I'm like, no, but I represent a certain, you know, I said, I don't want to put people's business out there. I represent this person, his name is this. He goes, oh, that name has money. And that became a chip on my shoulder, which now they hear Omar, I don't even use my last name, and they're like, oh shit, ho, what's up? You know, that became my mission. That became my driver. Now, have you had anything like that happen to you during your travels, or actually your stint during corporate America?
That's such a fascinating story, man.
Like
the fact that someone just heard your last name and automatically assumed certain things about you, like that's wild.
That's the way it was, man. That's the way it was. I want to say it's a little different now, and I will really say that it's much better hidden now. And that's the truth. Yeah. And what gravitated me to reach out to you is because you want to get authenticity. And that's the word that's been resonating all day. My last podcast, authenticity is key. I will say this, though. You still have to be professional. And I believe, you know, I got, there's equal opportunity, there's this, there's that, but people have to have a certain type of poise and pedigree and just ability for certain jobs. We can't get them just because we're darker. We can't get them just because of that. But once we get there, how do we maintain people there? Like, it doesn't have to be a subculture within a culture, because that's what you see a lot in corporate America. You see factions, right?
Yeah.
So what do you see? Like, I'm giving you my perspective, and I haven't been in a perspective like that in a long time, because I got a little frustrated with the whole system, and I just created my own shit, and that's how I've been able to go. But you're working within these huge companies. What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you use the word culture coach. Like, did you have a culture coach when you were at Facebook? And when I think of culture coach, my first culture coach was my family.
Right.
My grandfather, I didn't grow up with my dad, so my grandfather was that primary father figure in my life. And I remember early on, he would tell me things like, yo, do you see presidents? Do you see CEOs with beards, tattoos, do-rags, all these things? And I was like, oh, nah. So he was like, no, act accordingly, right? I mean, this was a dude that wore a suit everywhere. I mean, even to the point where he would go get a drink with his boys, just in their apartment, he would wear a suit, just take the train, right? Yeah. So this idea of perception and professionalism, quote unquote, was like so ingrained in me at an early age. And what he was trying to do was impact people's perceptions before they even got to know him, right? And I understood what he was trying to tell me, right? He was trying to protect me from people's negative perceptions, right? Like your example, right? The association of, like, just because of how you look at your last name, there's a certain association, right? But what he was also telling me indirectly, and I don't know if he realized this, was that in order to be more successful, I had to be more white. You know what I mean? Yep. Because that's the people that he's referring to, right? So, when I got into corporate America, there was no one telling me that I had to look a certain way directly. But indirectly, you would hear certain things, and like microaggressions is what they're called now, or, racism.
What's it called?
Microaggressions?
I never heard that before. Microaggressions? Really? I never heard that before in my life. Yeah.
Microaggressions are like racist things, or like subtle little things, passive aggressive things that people will say to you, without like saying a certain thing, right? So,
can you give me an example?
I mean,
you don't have to say where it was. I gotta hear it. Now I gotta hear it.
Oh, I don't care. I'll say anything. Like, I remember at Facebook, somebody told me my PowerPoint slide was ghetto.
Ooh, really?
I remember at Facebook there was this woman that was showing me like certain places that she went out when she went to school in Fordham, and she wasn't from the neighborhood. She was from Connecticut, and she was telling me, she was like, I was like, oh, where'd you go out when you were at Fordham? And she was like, oh, I don't recommend this place. It's a little, gave me like the, like, don't go there. She showed me pictures, and I looked at it, I was like, yo, that spot looks lit. Like, is this still open?
I'm off the block.
Yeah. But like, those sort of comments make me feel like, oh shit, I can't tell you what I do on the weekends, or I can't be my most authentic self. There was this one incident too, man. I remember I had an interview. This wasn't at Facebook. It was a company called Collective. They don't even exist anymore. Thank God.
Good for them.
During the interview, the dude asked me like, yo, like, you seem qualified. You got all the qualifications. Let me ask you a question. Like, what's your favorite Jordan? I'm like, what? I'm like, that's not a standard interview question. But like, in that moment, I wanted the job so badly. I was like, you know what? Let me answer it. He didn't even stop though. He was like, yo, what about Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole? Like, who do you prefer?
Like, what complexion was this person? Was he?
He was another white dude from Connecticut. Something about Connecticut. But
did you get the job?
And I did get the job.
All right, good. All right.
But that's the thing, is like, yo, there's nothing, like, funny thing, like, I like J. Cole, I like Kendrick Lamar, I like Jordans, but what did he assume about those people that listened to those things or were into those fashion? You know what I mean? Like, it's some of these like indirect questions that have nothing to do with the job, nothing to do with my skill or competence, but people tend to like have this association, you know what I mean? And like, who knows what it is? But I didn't report him to HR. I didn't take any action because I was scared and I didn't want to lose out for that opportunity. Right. You know what I mean? Like, I was just happy to be there.
Yeah. So, and you had to conform kind of, right? So this takes me back to like when I went to college, there was a program called Equal Opportunity Program, right? Equal Opportunity Program means you test well, your finances aren't that, and that's how I got into NYU, Equal Opportunity Program. My SATs were off the hook, my grades are all right. But what they don't tell you is that, and listen, shout out to NYU because I learned so much at that school, not just so much from the teachers, but rather from being around certain people in different economic backgrounds that opened my eyes to the finances of the world, right? Like, here I am from the Bronx, and I'm like in this small world, like everybody on the block and little neighborhood drug dealers, the big dog with his little BMW. Meanwhile, I'm at the bursar's office with all types of loans and checks and money orders and stuff. And this Chinese girl in front of me, or Asian, let's be politically correct, she swipes a credit card for $25,000. And I'm like, wow, you can do that? Like, this opened up my mind to the possibilities of what there is in the world. And it helped me start evolving. It started opening my mind, and I call it my consciousness a lot. My consciousness started developing and understanding the macro of the world. And that helped me pull myself up, bootstrap myself up to where I am now, because I understood my belief systems changed. Because you usually are what you see, right? And if you're around and using a third base product of the environment, I don't know if you remember that hip hop, that might be before your time. But usually you are what you're around. And I'm grateful that I was pushed by my mother to go to college, and I went to NYU, which was a prestige college, and then it was in the village, and it was just totally different from the hood. And it opened me up to so many different ways of looking at things, and it helped me develop to the man I became. And I don't know how many people have that experience. Some people don't, right? Some people don't. And then you're having an experience with a gatekeeper. Let's call it what it is, human resources. A gatekeeper. I don't know if he's trying to build common ground with you, or he was experimenting with you, or he was trying to disqualify you, right? Like, who knows? Yeah. Fuck does he care? You know what I'm saying? Like, what does that have to do with me getting the job, sir? That would have been the question, but you of course you don't want to jeopardize it, right? Yeah. So that sucks. I'm sorry about that. Shout out to the collective.
Nah, it's all good. But that's where that authenticity piece comes out as well, because I feel like, I think most people, when they think about authenticity, they often think about the aesthetics, right? Like how I dress, how I do my hair, or maybe even like how I speak. But I think you mentioned an interesting word, which is like values, right? Like one of my values is I consider myself fearless. I consider myself outspoken. And like I cringed inside the fact that like I couldn't speak my mind because I was fearful of this opportunity that I didn't want to lose. You know what I mean? And I feel like that wasn't a safe environment for me to be my authentic self and just like being outspoken, right? Now I'm at a comfortable place where I feel comfortable advocating for myself and advocating for others, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying authenticity is just like speaking up, because not everyone is comfortable with that, right? That's not everybody. But for me, that was me. And in that space, I didn't necessarily feel comfortable with it. But yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting so far.
So tell me about Plurawl. The mission is for people to feel more comfortable being authentic, right? So tell me about the stuff behind you, Café Bustelo. Tell me about the gear, the swag, because I know it's more than just you. I've seen different pictures. So tell me about the movement, because I think I'm down with it. Even though we just met.
Yeah, I mean, the mission is to redefine professionalism. And it was interesting because, it started with my experience, but the more research that I did, I noticed that it wasn't just me. There's actually research published by the Harvard Business Review.
How did you? The question was, how did you do research on that? Because you felt like this can't just be me. This shit is weird. Was that what it was? You just started Googling, like, yo, let me look this shit up. This shit's crazy. I feel uncomfortable.
I mean, I saw myself code switching on a daily basis. I mean, I'm talking about not code switching, but I used to do like full on research on the weekends. Like instead of doing shit that I wanted to do, like I used to do full on research in like white popular American culture. And that shit takes time out of my weekend. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I would prepare for that Monday morning when they asked me like, yo, what did you do this weekend? I was like, I'm gonna study Bruce Springsteen. I'm gonna study Billy Joel. I'm gonna binge watch shows like Riverdale. Wow. Just to be able to like
have
feel
a common
accepted.
ground?
Exactly.
Right.
And I think was what people need to realize as well is that going back to your comment around like finding common ground, like there's a difference between like me being like, oh shit, I want to try golf, and me feeling forced to try golf.
The only way I'm going to get that raise is if I play with the gentleman's club and go play golf with these guys. Yeah, I get it.
Exactly. Because if I say, yo, I went out to that spot in Fordham, people are going to be like, oh, Pabel is quote unquote ghetto.
Yeah.
And they're not going to invite me to that beer after work, and that's not going to get me a promotion. You know what I mean? So what I realized was that it wasn't just me doing it. Like I looked around and for example, like my boy would get asked the question, what did you do on the weekend? And he'll say some lie like, oh my God, I went to this amazing place downtown in Soho, brunch, blah, blah, right? And then I would get lunch with him and he would like, yo, I hit up Dyke. I'm like, did you just lie to them? Like, why are you lying? You know what I mean? So what I want to do is save people the time on an individual level, right? But corporations are also losing out on this as well, because we're spending time not even doing work. We're spending time being actors.
Hiding,
you know what I mean?
Hiding. Yeah. Hiding.
Exactly.
Hiding in plain sight.
So Exactly. So what I tried to do is really quantify that. So I found research that says 76% of Latinos in the workforce suppress parts of their identity at work. But that's 3 out of 4 of us. That's crazy. Right? So I went on a...
It's crazy. It is crazy. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't interrupt you. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I went on a mission to really understand why do we do that, but also create the representation that I wish I had when I was younger. So every episode is a person of color, mostly Latino, Latina, Latinx folks, to explore that conflict between authenticity and professionalism and show people that you can be your most authentic self and thrive at work. Like, we don't have to code switch anymore.
Yeah. I think in my own personal experiences, the way I've been able to outmaneuver my Caucasian contemporaries, we'll use that, right, is through education, but also cleverness. Because the thing is with me is that I grew up without much. So what that forces you to, if you're a true entrepreneur / hustler, it forces you to be creative. It forces you to be dynamic. It forces you to execute on like shit that might not work, but you don't care because what's gonna go wrong anyway? I hate where I'm at, so I'm gonna fucking try. And it helped me to basically take risks where others won't, and not be afraid of being afraid, because the worst fear was waking up tomorrow and being in the same place I started. You know what I'm saying? So that I mean, again, that could go against you, right? That could shock you into a fearful state where you're like, nah, I'm good. I'm status quo. I'm making my like $1,000 a week, whatever the number is. I don't want to say a number and offend anybody So being your authentic self, like for me to be able to walk into any room and be myself is something that I guess talking to you is almost like being reflective at this point is priceless, right? It's priceless. Yeah. But the truth of the matter is that look, I got friends from the hood. I got friends from, Connecticut. And you just got to know your audience too, right? Like there's a time, like with Dave Chappelle, like keeping it real goes too far. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a time to turn it off. You know what I'm saying? But especially in the workplace, like you can be you, but I think don't be so busy being you that you don't do any work. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like there's some people that may take that your mission and be like, yeah, I'm gonna be fucking, I'm gonna be me, and be cursing, like just acting wild in the workplace. That's not what you mean. You're just saying you just want to be in an environment where you don't feel like you have to compromise who you really are, And if you're earnestly qualified for the position, that shouldn't be that far off. You know what I'm saying? Like you wouldn't put somebody in a space that they wouldn't be able to be productive if they weren't their true self.
Yeah, but I think what people got to realize too is that it's not just about like, speaking slang. Like there are policies in place at a government level that literally prevent us from being our most authentic self. Like
name one.
I'll give you a few examples.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it wasn't until 2 years ago that I mean, I'm laughing at this because when you think about it, it's kind of crazy that it took that long. But it went up to the Supreme Court that now it's illegal to discriminate based on sexual orientation. Like, so before that, it was illegal. It was legal to not hire people if you were gay. Right. There are people right now that their colleagues don't know that they're gay because they're scared to say that. I mean, I have people on the podcast that literally say that they don't even want to put that on LinkedIn. Yeah. Right. So for example, there was this college student, and when you in college, like, some people have internships, but the majority of the work that you do is with these committees at college, right? So you may be the treasurer of a certain organization, right? He couldn't even put that he was the treasurer of like the Pride group at college because he was scared to put on his resume that he was gay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll give you another example, which is simple, but like you got to realize, again, going back to representation, like how this really impacts people, right? Let's look at the Yankees. They have a facial hair policy. Like
I know
they're telling you, and it's not only a facial hair policy, it's a hair policy as well, right? Yeah. So Andrew McCutcheon is a great example, right? He had to cut off his dreads into like a low-cut Caesar, had to cut off his beard. And it's this idea around like what a professional is supposed to look like. And it's not too far off from like what happens in finance, right? Like we're literally showing kids that look up to professional athletes around how you need to look in order to be successful. I think it's bullshit, and I think it needs to change.
Yeah, representation is big. And what people don't understand is that until the proliferation of the internet, and I had this conversation with Armando Tam, you ended up knowing him, was that
shout out to Armando.
God forbid, shout out to Armando. God forbid you get a guy with a little bit of a brain, and God forbid you get a guy with a little bit of time, and all of a sudden he could do his own thing. and that becomes an issue, right? Like that becomes an issue. Like I've recently I got spoken about maybe doing something like in a syndication thing. And I told the guy, I was like, look, that sounds dope, sounds really nice, but understand that I have $1 million business in mortgages and real estate. So whatever this would be, I know you catch the right guy, I'll do it, and he won't read the fine print. I'll be like, if it ain't anywhere near this, I'm not interested. Good luck with that. And he's like, wow, I've never heard that before. I'm like, yo, because I know my worth. And what happens is usually they're looking for the guy who's like on his last dime, because they can get the give him the shittiest deal in America, and they're like, yeah, we'll take it. And then all of a sudden they control your narrative, right? Controlling the narrative is really big for me. And that's why I started in 2019, I think, or 2018. I'm not even sure. When I started doing this social media thing, what the big thing for me was controlling the narrative, because I feel if you don't tell your story, somebody else will tell it for you, and it might not be true.
Big facts.
It might not be true. So I think that's super important. I think it's super important for people like us to get online and do really nicely edited clips, and be able to explore our ideas without any restriction, without any filter, without any gatekeeper. And that to me has been one of the biggest advantages of the internet. I remember, and going back to what you said, representation. Back in the day, man, on movies, we were always the pimps or the drug dealers or the guy breaking into the house. Or Puerto Ricans love to steal hubcaps. I mean, that was the thing when I was a kid. Everybody, you steal hubcaps, you Puerto Rican. Or the black guys, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, these stereotypes. What they don't understand, these stereotypes are so instilled in us, engraved in us visually, because the representation on media, who is full of gatekeepers until now, that's orchestrated. Because you look at who you're supposed to be by looking at people that look like you, right? So people that look like us, there's not too many private money lender, real estate brokers that do millions of dollars in business, right? So I'm here to talk about that. Why? Because it could be you. Because it could be you. It could be you. And you have your own brand. You work at a company, but you got your own hustle that you're trying to keep the message out. And you should be proud of that, man. Because, of course, it costs money, it's time. And sometimes there's no immediate ROI except self-fulfillment. And sometimes self-fulfillment doesn't pay the bill. And people start to compromise,
Yeah, and it's a big risk, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like sharing some, with my message being around professionalism, like there's so many like taboo topics that people tell me I shouldn't be talking about.
Like what?
It's a big risk, man.
Like what, man? Would you mention that?
Like salary transparency. Like I think one of the big reasons why there's a wage gap between like certain segments of the population is because we've been trained to like not talk about salaries openly. You know what I mean?
Oh, hell man. Latino at the table, you never asked your father how much he made. You never asked your mother what they made. That was like, you get smacked in the face for that. Right? Meanwhile, with my kids, I tell them, look, this is what you should be looking at. This is what I do. This is what this is worth. And it's not to flex. It's to give them some sort of perspective. Right? Like if you want to go for this, you ask a kid, what do you want to do? I want to be a millionaire. All right, cool. How you gonna do it? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you make your first 1,000, bro? Let's get it together. And then all of a sudden you start putting it in perspective. It just look, it's all possible, but realistic, right? Like you gotta I want to hang out and I want to be a YouTuber. That's everybody's shit now. I want to be a YouTuber. I want to play video games. I want people to watch me. And I'm like, all right, man, how many followers you got? 7. You need like 1,000, right? Like to be like I started because I got into it, so I'm kind of learning the business, and I want to be able to educate, right? I think that's how we all learn, by sharing information. But they're so caught up in the visuals or the optics of it all, they're not trying to understand the work behind it to get there. And that's what I'm fearful of for the younger generation. You're younger than I am, and these guys might be right under you, but that's what I see, right? Like everybody's looking for that. Like everybody loves this. Everybody loves crypto and NFTs right now. I have nothing against them. I own some. I'm working on one, but I think people are looking for the quick buck instead of saying, "Yo, well, how do I build legacy?" All right, you can do that on the side. All right, but what's your 9 to 5? What do you do until then? And I get a lot of blank stares. What do you mean? I'm living with my mom until I'm 40. That's not a plan, bro. Bro, that's not a plan. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, these are conversations I have. And I have 3 young sons, 26, 21, 17. So I'm beating my head against the wall all day with them. Because even though I might be a person of importance in the outside world, At home, I'm just dad. And they're just like, yeah, whatever, dad. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, but leave me alone. Meanwhile, somebody else tells him the same thing, and all of a sudden, like, you know, God opened up the heavens and spoke to him. Hey, dad, yo, I gotta do this, man. I gotta work. I gotta do work. I gotta get my clay. I'm like, yo, I've been telling you that for 17 years. No, but he said it. And I'm like, all right, man. So I just take the blessing. I'm like, all right, man, good. Do that. What do you do with that group? How do you like? They haven't been where you're at yet. They haven't had those interviews. I was gonna call it interrogations. They haven't had those interviews yet where they're like. They're gonna be like, yo, something's off here. Like, this shouldn't be the way it is. What's the message to them? Because everybody wants to be like free. I want to be me. I'm like, who are you? They don't know. They're like, I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to that representation, man. To your point, right? Like, I could tell them something, but until they see it from the right person or hear it from the right person, then it's not going to resonate. And somebody said this on a podcast. They were like, when you become your authentic self, when you end up becoming is a mirror for other people, right? So you end up reflecting back something on them, right? So somebody could look, shout out to Catalina Peña. She's the one that said it.
Shout out Catalina.
Yeah. But let's say your son looks at me and he's like, oh, I don't look like him. I don't have whatever, like maybe he doesn't have facial hair. Maybe I don't talk like him, et cetera, right? But like, he hears it from somebody else on the podcast and they're like, oh, that's the person that I needed to hear it from, right?
Yeah.
Same thing for a woman, right? She may be listening to this conversation and is like, I don't resonate with what they're saying.
These guys don't get it.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So I think it needs to come from that right person. So I think by sharing our stories, like this conversation that we're having right now, creating that representation will inspire someone else to share their story. And it's just like a catalyst effect for years to come, right? But I think storytelling is really important to create, again, that representation.
Absolutely. I think storytelling is the most effective way of teaching. I think people don't, unless like, I can give people, and I learned this way back when, like back into the early 2000s where I would go to financial planning offices and we would have to pitch a room where, you know, why do we need to know a financier guy, a mortgage guy? And we would pitch, hey, this is why we're useful. Here's an example. You're a client that has this. And like I was really good at that where my partners was like, yo, how you fucking did that? I'm like, because they gotta understand how it's useful, right? Like for me telling you I get you a low interest rate, who cares? You know what I'm saying? For what? But if I say, yo, look, the client has, I might lose you for a second. The client has, he's equity rich but cash poor. But let's do this. He's pulling out from your pension. But what if I pull out $300,000 and he can reinvest in your pension and now he's getting $5,000 a month? Now it makes sense to you? And they're like, oh shit, yeah. You know what I'm saying? But I have to know. What I did in my come up. What I would go before I went to like a meeting, I would research the people I was gonna pitch, and I would ask myself the question, yo, how am I of value to that? How can I be a value add? And that's what made my dynamic progression in my profession. When most guys, and I don't know if I don't really know, I know you work for a large corporate client, but on a smaller B2B level, most times people are coming up to you like, yo, what you got for me? And I never do that. And if I sit with you, like we chop, and I'll be like, well, you know I could be helpful to you, bro? This is what I could do for you. This is like, I'm gonna connect you with this guy. No ulterior motive. That has been the secret. Like that is what people need to do. You know, be of service. The money will come. The money's a byproduct. Of course, this is the hardest thing to do when you just start, because you're in a. I use this term a lot. You're in a deficit. You're in a financial deficit. You're off equilibrium. I use that confidence because I feel, and we can break this down. You're the right person to talk to about this. You know, Hispanic households, they're usually working off equilibrium. What I mean by that is that they're never working with like, yo, I made $10,000 this week. My bills are $2,000. There's more than enough. We want to go to the movies. You want to put something in your life insurance. You want to do a pension plan. You know, what do we want to do? We don't have to. We want to stay in bed. We can stay. Nah, man. Me growing up, my mom was up at 5 a.m., back at 6 p.m., never had enough, took all the overtime she could, was always stressed out because it just became the norm, right? And I try to present a different household to my family. And I tell, you know, on one side, I'm trying to show them a different way. On the other side, I get frustrated because you're like, yo, man, what the fuck, bro? Like, you know, be grateful. Like, you're like, they're like, oh, I have to wake up today at 2 o'clock. I'm like, yeah, bro, 2 o'clock. It's like half the day's gone. You gotta wake up. You gotta do something. You know what I'm saying? But they don't get that. So that's what I kind of struggle with sometimes, you know?
Money's very important, man. I told my mom, I joke with her, I was like, you're the reason I'm addicted to it. I'm like slowly getting to the point where I'm starting to integrate like more balance in my life. But like when you hear about like toxic productivity, like if I don't feel productive or feel like I'm doing something to make money as soon as possible in the morning, like my whole day is ruined.
Really?
Well, the fact
that you know that is a big thing. The fact that you know that
shout out to therapy for that.
Did you?
Yeah.
He said, yeah. Yeah, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Because, you know, like what people, you have to understand is that like this is a long-term game, bro. Like you only get one of these, you know, one of these lives. So you got to kind of figure out I'm all about the hustle, bro. I'm up at 4 a.m. I work out. I get to work. I work with about 12 people. I watch my words around you. I work with 12 people and, you know, I got to try to get the best out of them. And I know I tell them all the time, look, today, I was like, I'm doing podcasting today. I'm not going to be available. I'm at the desk. I need you guys to do this. I'll be back at this time, but I need you guys to do this. And that's how I kind of leave it. I don't like micromanage to a fault because everybody who's with me kind of knows what they're supposed to be doing, all right, by this time. You know, like they should know. And if not, there's people in line, managers that can help them. But you can't make people want to hustle. Like that's the one thing I learned. I was like, if they don't have it, they don't have it. I can't teach you that. I could teach you everything else, but I can't bring the hunger. Like you got to have that. It has to be a burning desire within you. And I have yet to, I can't really identify it. Some people that I know that come from well-to-do families have it, and they take their family to the next level. Others, like me, I come from nothing, and I'm bringing my family to whatever level we end up at. Others come from families like me, and they just feel that they're assimilated. This is where they're supposed to be. And I think a lot of that has to do with programming. And what I mean by programming is about visual representation of who they're supposed to be. I'll give you an example. This is a good one. So I used to work on 79th in the West Side, this building called the Apthorpe, right? I did this while I was in college between semesters, and I was, so, you know, getting a union job, Latinos, you know, that's like gold, right? So the doorman, like you hit the fucking lotto. So the elevator men there would take 8 weeks paid vacation because they've been in the union for like, you know, whatever, 10 years, 12 years. And in the building, just to give you a little bit of narrative, was the chairman of American Express, Bernard Arnault, Rosie O'Donnell, Cyndi Lauper, Nick Pileggi, who wrote Goodfellas, Nora Ephron, who wrote Sleepless in Seattle, who is his wife. A lot of soap opera stars, like a lot of big people, right? All really nice people. When I interviewed for the job, the lady was like, look, you don't look at them in the face. You don't, you know, what floor can I take you to? And that's it. But eventually they get kind of cool with you, and they're nice to you. And, you know, people on that level, because I believe in the law of abundance, in that mindset, they were always like, hey, what are you going to do? You know, obviously I'm in college, and what do you think you do? And they were always super positive. They were always super supportive. Yeah. They were always like, yo, you could do that. Like everything, yo, how can I help you? Can I link you with somebody? You know, and I was still shook because I didn't want to lose my job. It was paying like, I don't know, it was like paying like $23 an hour, which was a lot of money back in 1999, 1997.
Yeah, and in college too, that's a lot.
Yeah, a lot. I was getting paid, bro. I was killing it. It was my summer job. And one time in the summer when it's super hot, you would take the elevator to the basement and you would just chill there until somebody called you, especially on a Sunday because nobody was really moving too much. And there was it's a 4-building block, and in it is a driveway. Only one car could be in the driveway at the time. And the guy who had his car in the driveway all the time was the chairman of American Express, Bernard Arnault. He was the Willy Will. You know, he had the penthouse. He was like, I'm the shit. And his driver was a guy named Sam, cool guy. I don't know, haven't seen him in 25 years or whatever, but I remember Sam. And he was like, yo, you know, if you want, I can, you know, I make about 120 a year. You know, I can hook you up. I can get you involved and become a driver. And, you know, if you want. And I was really grateful. I was like, yo, man, thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. I'll let you know. But in the back of my head, I was like, yo, I want to be the guy upstairs. I want to be the guy upstairs. So I'm going to figure that part out. That was my thing. It was like no shot at Sam. It just wasn't for me. But he was happy. You know, he made his 120 a year. His kids were in school. He drove the Cadillac or whatever car it was, and he took it home and he would use it as his own car. You know, like it was a good setup for him, and he was satisfied, and I was happy for him. But it wasn't for me. It was, and I was like 18, 19 at the time. I was really young. I wasn't like, you know, I had no right to be. I don't want to say entitled, but or have these aspirations, but I did. And I don't know why. So my life could have been really different had I been somebody else. I could have been like, you know what, I want to get that, and been a driver for somebody. That could have been me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that reminds me when I do like, pre-COVID, I used to do like high school career fairs.
Okay.
And kids would be shocked when I walked in, and they were like, "You work at Facebook? Like, you work at TikTok, or wherever I worked at the time?"
Yeah.
Like, because they didn't even, they were like, I thought it was just an algorithm. Like, I didn't even know people work there. Like, they're like,
humans work there.
Yeah. And when I told them I wasn't an engineer, the fact that there are like non-technical roles
you're
in
non-coder?
some of these large corporations. Yeah, mind blown.
Right.
And the fact that like I look like them. It was just like so many layers to it.
Right. You opened up their perspective. You're like, yo, that could be me. That could be me. And that's a big thing, man. People don't understand how big a thing that is. Going back to why I started the podcast, and I wanted to have different people on this podcast to narrate how diverse we can be and how successful different people are in whatever sector they're in. It's huge. I don't know if people still to this day understand how important that is. Like, I really don't know if they get it until they have their like aha moment when they're like punched in the face. They're like, oh shit, yeah, that could be me, right? Yeah. And like you said,
going back. Well, I think it's interesting too. Like, even going back to the Instagram example or the YouTube example, right? Like kids, youth, whatever you want to call them, they're on Instagram. They're on these social platforms, and what they see is, the influencers, because that's what's in their feed, right? But not too many people think about, yo, who owns Instagram? Who owns YouTube? Like, who's the head of content at YouTube? Like, who's the CEO of Instagram, right? Like, again, going back, because you don't see this, like, the CEO of Instagram isn't the most popular person on Instagram. You know what I mean? Right. Like, same thing with YouTube, right? So what we see are the creators. So we want to be what we can see. But imagine your feed was full of like, yo, these are the people that work at these companies, right? Like, it's just a different level of dreaming, right? Like,
I was going to say transparency.
Yeah, or transparency.
A different level of transparency, because people don't understand. Like, you have to give ideas to brains that are expandable, right? People have to be, because there's certain concepts that, going back to my OG generations, that if I said that, they were like, shut up, you don't know anybody, like, you don't know anything, like, say, I'm sure you guys run into stuff like, if somebody's not ready and you tell them a story, they're like, nah, it's fucking fake. Yeah. Nah, until it's in their face, like, irrefutable. Like, I think a lot of the OGs with this whole Bitcoin thing, they're like, oh, it's not real money. And then when you see somebody cash out from an ATM and they see all the fucking, oh shit, really? Like, in Puerto Rico, Bitcoin, they have a lot of Bitcoin ATMs. A friend of mine is really big into crypto, so he's he's trying to educate. And I believe that's going to be the way of the future, because nobody wants to be so trackable, especially if you start talking just money. Like, you don't want to be taxed, you don't want to be that. People, you know how it is. And innovation outpaces regulation all the time. I put that on my Instagram the other day because I believe that. We're going to stay creative and innovative, because I mean, most people, not everybody, but a lot of people come from scarcity. So they want to be innovative and create. That's the only way you get ahead, right? You create something nobody else thought of, or you tweak something that already exists and make it look cool, and all of a sudden you're the next thing. But that, like, I this post is coming out soon. It's about, like, I was talking about hip hop the other day. Like, everybody, hip hop is a trillion dollar commodity right now. It's like, hip hop came out of the Bronx when we had burnt down buildings, and niggas didn't even have electricity for the turntables. They would steal it from the lamppost. I was like, and the block parties were on the street. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't understand where this came from. This came from, we have nothing. How do we make something? And and now look at it, $1 trillion economy. You know what I'm saying? So, like, and it's worldwide. It's worldwide.
Yeah. Speaking of tweaking thing, man, RIP to Virgil Abloh, but he had this really dope quote about, do you know Virgil?
Yeah.
He said, because people are like, yo, he's a genius and like all these things, which he is. He's an icon in the fashion game. But he said, to make a brand new design, all you need to do is change 3% of it. 3% of it, and it's a brand new design. So you look at like the iconic Jordan 1s. Like, he took something that was iconic that people like could see from a mile away and recognize what it is. He changed 3% of it and became, I mean, that wasn't his only design, right? But 3% of a design, and it became something brand new that people idolized.
Something that I think they're going for $15,000 a pair now. On I'm not gonna lie to you. I looked at them. I bought the Jordan 2s because the Virgil drop before he passed. Yeah. And I bought them because when I was 12, it was the first pair of expensive sneakers I ever owned in my life. Like, you know, I was like, yo, and they were like, these are $100. This is way back then, right? In the 80s.
Yeah.
And I opened it up and fucking Air Jordan shit. And I was like, oh, what is this? And like, but I had no idea. I didn't know how to process it because I didn't know. I was a kid. I was like 12. I didn't understand money and understand all that stuff. So when they were dropping, I was like, I gotta get them. This is before, you know, like I gotta get them. So I got the white and the black ones. I paid over retail, whatever. I wanted them. And then he ends up passing. And I'm like, damn, bro. Like you said 3% of the original change. I don't know if this is fact, but in patent law, to violate patent, there has to be a small, like not enough of a difference. I don't know what the percentage is, but if it's within the 3% range, that's pretty crazy. You know,
that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
Yeah, when you brought that up, I was like, yeah, because patents are really weird. Like you can tweak something a little bit, and all of a sudden your patent's nullified.
That's really interesting.
That's like
that takes into account like a lot of artists, especially like in the pop art space.
Yeah.
Like I'm wondering like why don't they get sued? I mean, I'm waiting for the cease and desist from like a few different people, but
from you,
yeah.
Winnie the Pooh and Cafe Bustelo. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, if I ever get a cease and desist from like Disney or Cafe Bustelo, I feel like, oh, I made it. Like they know who I am.
Yes.
I'll be
fucking notorious, baby, notorious. So everything is on your website. If you want to buy any gear, everything's on your website. And where would they where would they find you? You're mostly on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Where's your space?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Pabel Martinez. I'm on Instagram at Plurawl, and I'm on TikTok as well.
Which is your heaviest platform?
Yo, ironically, LinkedIn.
How long have you been using LinkedIn?
I've been using LinkedIn to like find jobs.
I gotta send you a friend request later, but okay. What?
Yeah. I would say I've been using LinkedIn since college, like passively though. Like I haven't really started like putting out content.
Right.
And then probably this year is when I started getting like really active on LinkedIn, and the number of followers and ads and all these things have blown up. And well, I mean, most recently, like one of my posts went viral, had like 3 million views.
What?
Which is crazy. But yeah.
Send me that. What it was one of the regular, was it the series?
Nah, it wasn't the series.
Come on, man.
It was about salary transparency, about Latino Equal Pay Day. I just put out my whole compensation package and was like,
you did.
The only way that we're gonna make a move and like close the gap is if we're honest around like how much we make with each other, with our families, with coworkers.
So I can look you up and see how much you make?
Yeah.
That's crazy. No, that's big.
Go for it.
That's big.
Yeah.
No, I just followed you. But that's big. That's why do you think people are embarrassed about that?
I think it's like jealousy, envy. I mean, growing up, my mom used to do my taxes as well, right? Like on the side, like during tax season. I remember like my family member, somebody told me like as soon as I started making 6 figures to like stop doing my taxes with my mom. And I was like,
why? Because they felt she wasn't accredited or she wasn't like enough of a professional?
Nah, I think it was, and my mom never showed a sign of like taking advantage of me or like anything like that. But it was more like that. They were like, be careful who you share your information with.
She's my mom, bro.
But I feel like so many things around professionalism, like there's so many social norms around it. But I think even at home, like we've been trained to like keep things secret, right? But even at work, they tell us that same thing, right? Like you get an offer letter in corporate and they're like, you know, don't tell this to anybody. Like this is your package, this and that. But let's be honest, like the only reason that they want us to keep it a secret is because we're getting paid differently.
Right.
Which is fucked up.
That's a great example. That's great. I never even thought about that. You're right. Right. The reason that you create division, it's easy to conquer. Right?
Yeah.
And
I'm not saying like the chief marketing officer should get the same money as like the marketing assistant, right? But like if there are 10 marketing assistants and they all got the job, like you should assume that they live in the same area, they have the same resume relatively,
and get paid the same.
Like why are they keeping that secret? And yeah, I mean I can talk about that for a minute, but that's the post that went viral. It's crazy because people were calling me brave, and I was like, I shouldn't be brave for posting like something that's just personal to me. You know what I mean? Like I want to make it normalized that isn't brave.
Yeah, what's funny is I'm gonna give you a thought on that right now. So as you make more, right? And I don't know what you make. I haven't looked at it. I'll look at it later, whatever. As you make more, what happens is
I have to talk about it.
The ability to the ability to, I want to say this the right way, the ability to share with your contemporaries gets smaller because of what you said, a little bit of jealousy, a little bit of that. What people don't take into account is the hours, the struggle. And I'm talking about an entrepreneur right now. I'm not talking about somebody's salary. That's a whole different struggle. You have a struggle with it within a bigger system. What people want is like all right. So like 2 weeks ago, we were working on it. Well, 2 months ago, we were working on a deal. I do real estate, and we do New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts. And I have a group in Massachusetts. A friend of mine owns like 90 units, and we had a prospective buyer to buy his 21 unit. We're filling it out. We're like kind of negotiating with the seller. We get the price to 1.6, and I'm gonna talk numbers with you because you're talking about transparency. So I'm all fucking in. 1.6 is really worth 1.9, but the seller was kind of in a bind. So he's like, "Yo, I'll take 1.6. I'll get out of here." So we're teeing it up, and the buyer, he's a supermercado guy. For whatever reason, I don't know. He wasn't my direct client. I'm the broker. My agent was dealing with him. It was my agent's client. So I wasn't too involved. At the end, he's like, he's supposed to have a certain amount of money, and for some reason, we just felt like something was off. Like, usually when you have a buyer and he's like, "Yo, I'm gonna do it," like, he executes. He's like, "Yo, I want my money. I want to snatch that." And we're like, "All right, so you're buying an asset at 1.6, 21 unit apartment building. It's worth 1.9, and what's the problem?" Just so we know, because we don't know. Anyway, he didn't have the money, right? We fished it out. He didn't have the money. So me and my boys, we were like, "Yo, let's each put up $160 and let's buy it ourselves." And that's what we did, right? So you can't talk about that with everybody because people, and it's not a shot at anyone. Full disclosure, I wasn't ready. Like I told my man, I was like, "Yo, I could do this right now, but if you need all of it today, I'm out. I'm no good." Because I'm self-aware that way, where I'm not like egotistical, because you don't want to pull from everywhere and be like tapped out, God forbid something happen. So I was like, "Look, I could do this right now. If you give me like another 2 weeks, I could do this." And another, like I broke down the whole timeline for him. He was like, "Bet, I got you. I'll put it up. Put what you can." But I think that takes a certain amount of humility, and as well as no ego. Like we're talking about our boys. Like we could do this, and we can all make 300,000, collectively, and at closing. I was like, "Yo, this is an opportunity we can try to take advantage of." But you can't have that. You can't have that conversation with a lot of your friends, because certain friends want to look the part but not do the part. Certain friends, like especially somebody in like corporate America who gets paid a structured salary, he doesn't have that ability, right? He works on his fixed income, and this is what he has, and this is what my budget is, and this is what I could do. Entrepreneurs, we're willing to do the craziest shit to make it happen. And, you know what I'm saying? Like, there is no in my world. There's hold on. You know what I'm saying? Like, but that's what I truly believe. But I'm willing to back it up with a work ethic. I'm willing to be innovative. I'm willing to be creative, because that's where I come from. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't see the boundaries. I say, okay, so this is a temporary roadblock or a bump in the road. How do I get around it? And being transparent. So I think that mindset's very different than most people. Yeah. And unfortunately, I think that's where the bravery comes in. Yeah. Because they're like, "Yo, man, I'm just using numbers. I make 75,000. I want people to know that, because they might ask you for a loan. Because that's the truth, man. Like, you have family, and I don't know you personally, but there's family members out there who always need a loan. There's family members that there's always a crisis. There's always an opportunity, and sometimes you got to be like, "Hey, man, I'm not there for that. I don't think that's a great opportunity." And then all of a sudden you have infighting. But you got to have that ability to be real with your family too, because going back to Latinos, because even though they're not waking up at 4 a.m. with you to get busy on your grind, if they see some sort of success, then all of a sudden it becomes, "Well, I could just ask for it." Did you watch that show with Kevin Hart, The Truth?
Oh, I love that show.
Right? With the brother?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did that, I mean, I don't know if you have a brother. I don't have a brother. But it hit home for like some of your homies. They always kind of mess you up, and you're like, "Yo, my man, that's it. This is it. You can have it. No, let me borrow it. No, you can have it. But don't ask me again."
Yeah. I think we need I I mean, it took a lot to get to the point where I could share my salary publicly. And what's funny is that sharing it on LinkedIn wasn't the worst for me. Sharing it on Facebook was the most anxiety.
Because your friends and family?
Because, I'm telling you, like, literally no one knew how much money I made. And I'm not a millionaire, right? Like, there's mad people that make more money than me, right?
So this is not you right now? It's not you?
I mean, I shared it on, I think, like, total package, not including stock. I didn't post the stock, but probably like 300,000. Mm-hmm. So, like, there's a bunch of people that make more money than me, right? Mm-hmm. But, like, whatever. But the one on Facebook was the most anxiety inducing because, like, my girlfriend doesn't know how much money I make. My family doesn't know. She
does now.
That was, yeah, they do now, right? But one of the craziest comments that someone left me, and I'm telling you, like thousands, tens of thousands of comments and
on LinkedIn we're talking about.
Shit. Yeah.
Okay.
The most powerful message that someone sent me, like pretty much word for word, was like, I didn't know someone that looked like me could make that much money. Wow. Like, how powerful is that?
That is
that somebody could listen to your story and be like, I could do that. You know what I mean? Going back to that representation, like, people don't think that they could do it because they never see someone that looks like them doing it.
Limiting self-beliefs, bro. Limiting self-beliefs propelled by lack of representation within media, which is the easiest way I can say it. Because you are what you see, you are what you consume, right? And when I mean consume, I don't mean just eating. I mean seeing, hearing, looking around. And I think that small step probably maybe inspired somebody to make a move that they may not have made before because they didn't believe it was possible. And I think go ahead.
I was gonna say something as simple as, like, it inspired so many people to even ask for a signing bonus, to negotiate for a higher wage, right? Because not everybody's built for the entrepreneurial life. I eventually will be taking that entrepreneurial leap and, like, not doing corporate. I'm going to take that leap, but, like, not everybody's built for that, right? So something as simple as, like, negotiating for a higher wage, right? That's life changing for families. You know what I mean? Like, an actual couple 20,000 on a salary, like that'll move some shit. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah. No. And look, you're not just talking for you. You're talking for the culture. You're talking for the culture because most people are just. And I speak about Latinos more, in my experience, that I've seen. You know what? Even African Americans. I remember one of my boys one time was going to ask for a raise, and he was like, "Yo, I want to ask for this much." I said, "Nah, brother. Ask for this much, and you'll probably get this much, right?"
Yeah.
I was like, "I'm just telling you. I really believe that, bro." He's like, "No, you think so?" I was like, "Yes, I think so." The worst they could say is no, and maybe counteroffer, and maybe you end up where you want to be. Homeboy never asked for it. He asked for what he wanted.
Exactly.
And he got it. And he got it. And I was like, all right, would have been cool to have an extra. And he's like, shut up. I'm like, I'm being honest, man. But it comes back to being this learned submission. I think that learned submission is marketed heavily in corporate America. I think it's done through the broadcasting system. I think submission is learned through learned behavior. Yeah. You want to get crazy? Let's get crazy. How about like the help? Right? Showing African American as your servants. Like, I know it was 50 years ago, or 70 years ago now, but is it that long ago? Right? And back in the day, that was it. That's what you got. You worked in the house, that was great. You worked out the house, you got burned. It is what it is. But how can we change the narrative? How can we, nobody talks about Black Wall Street. Nobody talks about, there's so many other stories that don't get the light that I feel that we have to talk about. We have to talk about to just give people some narrative, some context. It's not all just that. We're not all just pimps. We're not all, there's different people too. There's CEOs. The CEO of, I believe Coca-Cola was Spanish. CEO of IBM was Spanish. There's a whole bunch of us. We had a lot. All of us had turns. But we don't talk about those people. You don't hear about those people. You ever wonder why?
I mean, it's just not entertaining. It's not cool to us. You know what I mean?
Right. It's not cool to us. It's cool to us if we baseball players, though. If we basketball players.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Exactly.
Right.
Influencers.
Yeah. Or YouTubers.
Yeah, but that's what I'm trying. That's what I'm trying to show too, man. Like even through something like the Swag and Substance series that I'm showing, it's like there are people, executives that are quote unquote cool, that look like us, and not only are Latino. Because the thing is, and I don't know who the people that you're referencing, right? But there's a bunch of executives that are Latino, are Black, but they're code switching too. They faking it. You know what I mean? They're not showing that swag that we grew up with, right? So what I'm trying to illustrate is like, no. You can be an executive and have the swag. And I think that's the type of representation that we need as well. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So that's what I'm trying to illustrate.
No, I love it. I think that the representation with the swag is definitely a viable thing. I think that people just misinterpret having swag with having a lack of education for some crazy reason. I think because you look cool, you can't possibly have gone to Harvard. Because you look cool, you can't possibly have gone to Princeton. Because you look cool, you couldn't have gone to NYU. I'm like, yeah, I went to, really? Yeah, man. Yeah. But I don't know where that started. You know, and then there's this whole joke now about, you know, you wear New Balances, you have an 800 credit score. I don't know if you've seen that online. I'm like, all right, man. Well, you're propelling a misrepresentation. I think it's funny if people understand it's a joke. I think it's funny if people understand, you keep your credit cards below 30% of spending limit, your credit goes up. I think if people are more educated and not being excluded, because I think information is the biggest exclusion tool in the world. The holding back of information to not let other people educate themselves is the biggest tool. You know, going back to propaganda and the Nazis, like I can get into that. I don't want to get, like, it's a deep dive right there. But I really believe that the more education, and the internet, you know, is just free information, but people have to want to educate themselves. They don't want to, can't want to stay ignorant. You got to want to see why. What's the why? Why him? Why not me? Okay, be real. Well, before it used to be, if you don't have a 2-year degree, I think the police association still has that rule, 2-year degree now. You have to have a 2-year degree to even be a police officer. Before it wasn't like that. You know, I think they're just tactics to use to exclude.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right, man. So I think we deep dived enough. I think where can people find you if they need you besides LinkedIn, and they can find out how do people request loans from you? On Zelle or Cash App?
I'll be releasing the application soon.
Yeah. So where can they find you? On LinkedIn is the best place?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best place. You can also listen to new episodes of the Quien, eres podcast wherever you listen to podcasts.
Okay. You're on everything, Spotify, iTunes.
Yeah.
What's the other one?
All of them.
Apple Music. There's how many other?
Amazon
Google
Play.
Music.
There's a bunch. Stitcher. There's a bunch.
You're everywhere.
Everywhere.
Good for you. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, LinkedIn, Instagram at Plurawl. The website is Plurawl. And then everything really starts with the podcast. Like that's where we get the inspiration for all the for the art and apparel. So I recommend that. Listen
and
to
the art is
first.
in your website.
Yes.
Is that Ocasio-Cortez?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm originally from the Bronx, so I remember I kind of recognize it real quick. Alexandria. I just saw Alexandria behind you, bro. Yo, thank you for your time, bro. I really appreciate you. And hopefully we do some stuff in the future. I think we just started, and I just wanted to give some context to it. And I wanted to show the dynamic between the differences between our come up, but I think there's so much more. You know, I think I could see us on a panel discussing certain things that I think would be pretty powerful for the culture.
+1, man. I'm trying to do more events in 2022, or actually start doing events in 2022. Again, that representation. So
let me know.
Let's do it.
Let me know. Okay.
Dope.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.